So we're in the bottom of Beis Amud Beis in Maseches Horayos, and the Gemara had told us something very dramatic, that our Mishnah is only according to a Das Yachid. Our Mishnah had said that even if a minority, even if individuals who sin based on erroneous instructions, for example, they say it's permitted to eat chaylev, so our Mishnah says that the individual is off the hook and does not have to bring a korban chata. So the statement that was made by Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel is that that's only according to Rabbi Yehuda. But according to the Chachamim, an individual who sins based on instructions still has to bring his own korban chatas. It's only when the entire kahal, when the majority of Klal Yisrael sins, that they're off the hook. So the Gemara had said, I can prove this because I have two separate brises. One brisa goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that when an individual sins, he's off the hook. And the other brisa says that individuals are only off the hook if they're part of the rov kahal, the majority of the congregation. So 2 lines from the bottom, the Gemara now says, Mechti to Ravayu Stamitanan, Mimaida Kamaisa Rabbi Yehuda Basraisa Rabbanan Ema Ibcha. So the Gemara says, well, where do you see the authorship of the 2 brises that we quoted yesterday are not named in the respective brises? How do you know that the first one is Rabbi Yehuda and the second one is the Rabbanan? Maybe it's just the opposite. Maybe our Mishnah goes like the Chachamim, who say that individuals are off the hook. So the Gemara answers no. Man shamas le dedorish miute ki haygavna Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer zos toras ha'ola hi harei elu shlosha miutin. So the Gemara's first answer is that I know that the first brisa that we cited yesterday must go according to Rabbi Yehuda. How do I know that? Because that brisa had used a pasuk having to do with the law of bringing a korban chatas and found 3 words that are almost adjacent to each other and had derived 3 halachos from those 3 words, 3 exclusionary words. The only Tana who works in that fashion to pick out 3 words that are adjacent to each other to teach 3 separate halachas is Rabbi Yehuda. Because we have another brisa where Rabbi Yehuda is cited and he does the exact same thing. It's the pasuk of Zos Torah Sa'ola. This shall be the law of the Ola. And there too, the brisa of Rabbi Yehuda says we can exclude certain situations from being kosher as a korban Ola, such as if the blood spilled before I sprinkled, or if the blood was taken outside of the temple before I sprinkled. So you see that that's his MO. That's his way of operating, that he uses adjacent words to derive multiple halachos. And so that's how I know that the first brisa is Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore our mission is like Rabbi Yehuda. V'i boyasema, I'll give you another answer. Adayin ani omer, Lo matzis mukmas la Rabbi Yehuda de katani rov kahol shechatu based in mevin al yadein par. V'i Rabbi Yehuda ha'amar tzibur hu demaisi based in lo. I'll prove to you that the latter brisa that I cited, which says that the people are only off the hook if they comprise the majority of Klal Yisrael, right? That cannot be according to Rabbi Yehuda. Because, now remember, what did the second brisa that we cited yesterday tell us? Not only did it tell us that the kahal is off the hook if they are part of the majority, but it also told us something that seems to be universally agreed upon by all Tanoim. And that is that when the majority of Bnei Yisrael sin as a result of based in erroneous instructions, there is the obligation to bring a bull, as a korban atonement. However, there's some controversy as to who brings that bull. Does the tzibor bring the bull, or does the Sanhedrin bring the bull? The brisa that we cited yesterday had said that the Sanhedrin has to bring the bull. And yet we know that Rabbi Yehuda holds differently. Rabbi Yehuda holds that the tzibor, that the community brings the bull. Ditnan, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shiva Shavatim Shechatu Meviim Zayin Par. That if 7 tribes sin, then each tribe is viewed as a separate community, and each tribe has to bring a separate bull. Now, if you hold that it's the Sanhedrin's responsibility, there's only one Sanhedrin, and therefore they would only have to bring one bull. So this proves to us that the latter brisa that we quoted cannot be according to Rabbi Yehuda. Ergo, the first brisa is Rabbi Yehuda, the second brisa is the Chachamim, and therefore our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda and not like the Chachamim. So, that's all according to Rav Yehuda citing Shmuel. But Rav Nachman Omar Shmuel says, Zu divrei Rabbi Meir, aval Chachamim omrim yachad she'asa b'horas based in Chayev. Rav Nachman citing his Rabbi Shmuel says, I agree with the premise that our Mishnah does not go according to the Chachamim, but it's not Rabbi Yehuda, but rather Rabbi Meir. Because the Chachamim always say that if an individual who's not part of the majority sins based on Beis Din's instructions, he does have to bring a korban chatas. My Rabbi Meir or my Rabbanan. So where do you see this machlokus between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim, Rav Nachman? The Tanya, horu va'asu Rabbi Meir poter v'chachamim mechayivin. The Brisa speaks in very terse and cryptic language. It says, if they give an instruction and they act upon it, Rabbi Meir says that they are poter, and the Chachamim say that they are chayiv. Now, what do those they and what is chayiv mean? So, man asu. Who is that they act upon it? Ilay me based in my time at the Rabbanan de Mechayvi. Vatani yachol oru based in vasu based in yachol yehu chayavin. Tamalomar hakol va'asu. Ma'isa toli bekol va'arat luya bebeistin. So what does it mean? If they instruct and they do, cannot mean that if they, the Sanhedrin, instructs and they, the Sanhedrin, acts upon their instructions. In other words, the Sanhedrin paskins that you can eat chaylev. And they, the members of the Sanhedrin, go ahead and eat chaylev. So what are you going to tell me? That they are now chayiv to bring a korban? They have to bring their special bull korban? But that can't be the case. Because the halacha is that you only have to bring atonement if the community sins, not if the Sanhedrin sins. So therefore that can't be the meaning of the brisa. So elu haru beistin va'asu rov kahal. So rather what it must mean is that the Beis Din gave an instruction, go ahead and eat chaylev, and the majority of the kahal went ahead and ate chaylev. So if that's the case, then my time of the Rabbi Meir de Poter, then why would Rabbi Meir say that there's an exemption? I grant you that there maybe the kahal is exempt from bringing their individual korban chatas, but there's still an obligation for the Sanhedrin to bring their atoning bull. So elalav haru based in va'asu miyat kahalu v'hakam iflagi. Mar savar yachid she'asa behoras based in potter, mar savar yachid she'asa behoras based in chayiv. But rather you have to understand the brisa as follows. The Beis Din gave an instruction that it's okay to eat chaylev. A minority or an individual went ahead and acted upon that instruction, and he went ahead and he ate chaylev. And the machlokas between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim is, does he have to bring his own personal korban chatas or not? Rabbi Meir says you're off the hook, like our Mishnah says, and the Chachamim say you have to bring your own korban chatas. So it's not the way that Rav Nachman is interpreting it. It's not talking about the communal bull, because there is no community that sinned, but rather it's talking about liability for your own personal korban chatas. Amar Rav Papa, so Rav Papa says, you're interpreting the machlokes in the brisa that way. But the brisa is so cryptic, I can interpret it totally differently. Dekuli alma yachid shasa bahoras based in potter. Ela based in mashlam l'rov tzibur kamiflagi. Mar saver based in mashlam l'rov tzibur, and mar saver ain't based in mashlam l'rov tzibur. So I can interpret the brisa this way. It could be that everyone would agree, like our Mishnah says, that if an individual acts on Beis Din's instructions, he's potter from a korban chatas. But the machlokes is as follows. When is there an obligation to bring an atoning bull for the majority's sin? So here's the scenario. 50% of the Jewish people eat chaylev, and in addition to that 50%, the members of the Sanhedrin eat chaylev as well. Do the members of the Sanhedrin count as part of the kahal to tip the scales to now make it a majority or not? That's the question. Because on the one hand, we know that they're not part of the kahal for certain aspects, but on the other hand, they're still part of the Jewish community. So that's the machlokas. Rabbi Meir says there's no majority, and therefore there's no bull. And the Chachamim say no, they are part of the Kahal for this purpose, and therefore there is a bull. That could be the machlok. It's got nothing to do with an individual acting on the instructions of Beis Din. The Iba is saying, I'll give you another explanation. Horu Beis Din va'asu rubo shel kahal, uman chachamim Rabbi Shimon hi da'amar tzibur maisi u'Beis Din maisi. Maybe the machlokus is when the Beis Din gives instructions to eat chaylev, and the majority of the community eats the chaylev. So everyone agrees that there's an obligation to bring a bull. But there's a machlokus as to whether the tzibur also has to bring a bull. Are there two bulls or is there one bull? That's the machlokus. Rabbi Meir says the tzibur is potter because Rabbi Meir holds that the Beis Din only has to bring a bull. And the Chachamim say, no, the tzibur is chayev because not only does the Sanhedrin have to bring a bull, but the tzibur has to bring a bull as well, which is the shita of Rabbi Shimon. And maybe that's how to understand the brisa. Now, I'll give you another explanation. The Iboy is saying, "Shevet shasa b'horos beistino man chachamim Rabbi Yehuda hi detanya shevet shasa b'horos beistino oso hashevet chayev." You could also understand that the machlok is between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. That the chachamim here is Rabbi Yehuda, and the machlokus is what happens when one shevet goes ahead and eats chaylev based on the instruction of that shevet's Beis Din. Up until now, we've been learning that you view all of Klal Yisrael as one homogeneous nation, with one Sanhedrin. But that's actually only according to the Chachamim. According to Rabbi Yehuda, this bryce is Rabbi Yehuda, if one shevet has its own Beis Din, and that Beis Din tells the members of that shevet, go ahead and eat chaylev, and the majority of that shevet eat chaylev, so then there's a liability to bring a bull. But according to Rabbi Meir, no, it's a minority of Klal Yisrael, even though it's the majority of a shevet, and therefore there is no bull. And maybe that's the machlokas. V'iba yisema, kagon shechatu shisha vehin rubu shel kahol, o shiva afal pish en ruben shel kahol, umasnisin mani Reb Shimon ben Elazar. He, the Tani Reb Shimon ben Elazar omer, mishmo chatu shisha vehin rubu shel kahol, o shiva afal pish en rubu shel kahol chayavin. I'll give you another explanation as to the machlokas. Maybe it's between Rabbi Meir and Reb Shimon ben Elazar. The issue is like this. What if you have a majority but not a majority of Shvatim? Let's say 6 out of the 12 Shvatim eat chaylev, and their population is a majority of Klal Yisrael, but tribe-wise, it's not a majority, it's only 50%. Or conversely, what if you have 7 Shvatim that eat chaylev, but they don't comprise a majority of the population, because the majority is in the other 5 Shvatim? So that too, that according to Reb Shimon ben Elazar, you have a majority in both those cases, and therefore there is the obligation to bring a bull. But according to Reb Meir, since you don't have a full majority, so you don't bring a bull. Amar Ravasi. So now that we've explained that you could look at that brisa differently from the way Rav Nachman was analyzing it, we go into some incidental point, which is as follows. Uvahora helach acharov yoshvei Eretz Yisrael. When you want to determine whether the majority of Klal Yisrael have sinned or not, the sole criterion is to look at the population of Eretz Yisrael. Now, this is a dramatic statement, and it really has applications for us today as well. In other words, Jews in the diaspora don't count. When you want to determine whether the majority of the Kahal has sinned, you just take a census of the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, not the Jews in Chutz La'aretz. So you could have, let's say, 6 million Jews in Eretz Yisrael, and 6 million Jews in Chutz La'aretz. And the only thing is that, let's say, 5 million Jews in Eretz Yisrael eat chaylev. Do you have a majority? So you would say, well, if you look at world Jewry, it's 12 million. 5 million is not a majority of 12 million. No. But we look at what's in Eretz Yisrael. If it's 5 million out of 6 million, so then you have a majority. And how do I know this? Shenamar vayash Shlomo ba'esa hi esachag v'chol Yisrael imo kahal gadol milavo chamas ad nachal Mitzrayim lifnei Hashem Elokeinu shivas yomim v'shivas yomim arba'asar yom. In describing the festival that Shlomo HaMelech made upon building the temple, it says that he made a big festivity for 14 days with the entire kahal gadol, with the entire population, all the Jews from Hamat until the borders of Egypt, meaning delineating the northern and southernmost borders of Eretz Yisrael. So, Mechti, Ksiv v'chol Yisrael imo kahal gadol, milavo chamas ad nachal Mitzrayim lamali, Shma mina hanihu de'ikri kahal aval hanach lo ikri kahal. So why does the pasuk have to say that the Jews came from Chamat until Nachal Mitzrayim? If you already told me that it was the entire kahal, it must be to tell you that it's telling you which Jews count as the populace of Klal Yisrael. It's only the Jews within the borders of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, the Gemara now says, Pshita merubin v'nismoatu hainu plugta de Rabbi Shimon v'Rabbanan. Now, the Gemara does something here that's really not fair. It invokes a machlokes that we haven't learned about yet, and it doesn't detail the machlokes. That one of the Hagos on the margin says that there's actually a shtickle missing from the Gemara, and the original Ksav Yad really cites the original machlokes. There's a machlokes that we're going to see on Daf Yod between Rabbi Shimon and the Chachamim regarding the following situation. First of all, we know that if a common person sins, let's say he eats chaylev, he has to bring a korban chatas that's comprised of a she-goat. But if the person is a nasi, a tribal head, or if he's a Kohen Gadol, and he eats chaylev by accident, he also has to bring a korban chatas, but it's not a she-goat, it's a different animal. It's either a he-goat or it's a bull, but it's not a she-goat. So the question between the Chachamim and Rebbe Shimon is as follows. What happens if the person was a commoner when he ate the chaylev, but he only discovered that he ate chaylev after he became the Kohen Gadol? So does he have to bring the korban of a commoner, of a hedjot, or does he bring the korban of a Kohen Gadol? So the Chachamim say that you go after the sin. If at the time of the sin he was a hedjot, so he brings a hedjot chatas. But Reb Shimon says you go according to the time of discovery. If when he discovered that he sinned, he was already a Kohen Gadol, he brings the chatas of a Kohen Gadol. So, based on that machlokes that I've just filled in the blank for you based on Rashi, the Gemara now says as follows. What happens if the Jewish people were a minority when they ate chaylev, and when they discovered that they were mistaken in eating chaylev, that minority that ate chaylev is now the majority? So let's say, for example, a huge amount of people died in a plague, Rachmana litzlan. So that minority that had eaten chaylev now becomes the majority. So that's the question. The Gemara takes it as given if they were a majority and then they became a minority. Let's say they were a majority that ate chaylev, but by the time that they discovered they ate chaylev, they now became a minority because some of them had passed on, and there was a huge population surge. A lot of babies were born from the people who did not eat chaylev, and now the people who were the majority who ate chaylev are now the minority. So that, he says, would be a machlokas between Reb Shimon and the Chachamim. According to the Chachamim, if at the time that they sinned that they were majority, there would be the Sanhedrin would have to bring a bull. But according to Reb Shimon, it doesn't make a difference if at the time of their sin, but rather you look at the time of discovery. At the time of the discovery, they're a minority, then they don't have to bring a bull. But what about the opposite case? What about if they were a minority and then they surged to a majority? So the reason why this is more questionable is because perhaps Reb Shimon only says you go according to the time of discovery is when there was a liability for a chatas, for a sin offering, at the time when you sinned. But in this scenario, there was no liability for a sin offering at the time of the sin because they were a minority. There was no liability for a bull. So maybe Reb Shimon says that discovery alone is not enough. So that's the question. Mi pligi Reb Shimon v'Rabbanan. Reb Shimon dasel basar yedia michai v'Rabbanan dasli basar chata patri olo mai. So that's the question. Would we say that Reb Shimon says you go according to discovery, and if at the time of discovery there are a majority, so they have to bring a bull? And the Chachamim would say no. If you go according to the time of sin where they were a minority, and so therefore there's no liability for a bull. So the Gemara says, guess what? The Tispera, Emar Deshamas Le Reb Shimon Dazel Af Basar Yadia, Heichida Have Yadia V'Chata B'Chiyuv. Yadia Delo Have B'Chata Mishamas Le, Dim Kain Laisi Ki Hashta. Ela Reb Shimon Chata V'Yadia Boy. So the Gemara, it's a lot of language, but it boils down to this. The Gemara's conclusion is that the only time that Reb Shimon holds that you go according to the time of discovery to determine your status of chiyuv is if at the time of sin, you also had a status of chiyuv. When I sinned, I had to bring a korban chatas. But I didn't discover the sin until later when my status changed, where I have to bring a different kind of chatas. So there, Reb Shimon says, you go according to the time of sin, conjoined with the time of discovery. So since in both periods you were a bar chiyuva, you had to bring a korban chatas, to determine the type of chatas, we go according to the time of discovery. But if at the time of sin, you were not a bar chiyuva, because you didn't have to, if you had discovered it right then and there, you would not have had to bring a korban chatas because you were part of the minority, then just because at the time of discovery you are a bar chiyuva, but since there was no sin at that time, we can't take the discovery and conjoin it back to the actual sin to make you bring a korban chatas. So therefore the Gemara's conclusion is that both according to the Chachamim and according to Reb Shimon, there would be no liability of a bull when the sin took place when they were a minority, and then later they surged to a majority and discovered that they had sinned. Ibayalu. Now the next question is, Horu Beistin, Chaylev Mutter, Va'asu Miyat HaKol, V'chazru Beistin Bahen, V'horu Va'asu Miyat Acher, Mahu. Kiven de Shtei Yediyos Dinu Lo Mitzdaref, Odilma Kiven de Idi V'idi Chaylevu Mitzdaref. So the question is like this. What would have happened if the Sanhedrin paskins, you can eat chaylev? They paskin that in the year 2017. And then a bunch of people, a minority of people went ahead and ate chaylev. 6 months later, they retracted and they said, we made a mistake and you're not allowed to eat chaylev. But then another 6 months later, in 2018, they paskin, guess what? The new crop of chaylev from these new animals is now permitted. And a different minority went ahead, a different group of Jews that was not part of the original group of chaylev eaters, went ahead and ate chaylev. And then they realized that they made a mistake a second time, which is crazy, right? So the question is like this. If you put these two minorities together, you have a majority. Do these two majorities conjoin together? Or to make a majority, and therefore there's an obligation for the Sanhedrin to bring a bull? Or do we say that, no, since in the interim, Beis Din discovered their error, it's two different piskei halacha, so they're not conjoinable. Ve'im tim salomer keven de'idi ve'idi chaylev hu mitzdaref miyut bechaylev shal gabe akeva u'miyut hachaylev shal gabe dakin mahu. Hachavade keven de bas de betray kroi kaasilo mitzdaref oldin lekeven de'idi ve'idi chaylev hu mitzdaref. So the second question is, if you're going to say that that is conjoinable to form a majority, since they're both dealing with the Isser of chaylev, it's the same Isser, what would happen if the Beis Din's first psak had to do with chaylev that's lining the stomach, and then the second psak in 2018 was chaylev that lines the intestines? Two different types of chaylev. So would you say, since it's two totally different piskei halacha and two different types of chaylev, they're not conjoinable? Or since they're both chaylev, they are conjoinable? Ve'im tim salomar shem chaylev hu mitzdaref miyut bechaylev hu miyut bedam mahu. Hachavadai detrei yisuri ninu v'kiven dein yisurin shava lo mitzdaref odilma keven de karbanan shava mitzdaref. Let me ask you another question. What about, if you're going to say that two chaylev cases are conjoinable in what we just said, what about when the Sanhedrin in 2017 paskins that you can eat chaylev, and in 2018 they paskin that you can eat blood? Two different piskei halacha about two different, totally different types of eating. So would they be mitzdaref or not, to make two minorities into a majority? Could you argue that, on the one hand, that they're not conjoinable at all because they're two different piskei halacha about two different issues? On the other hand, they are conjoinable because the liability of a korban is the same. That if they make an error, the Sanhedrin has to bring a bull, because they're both sins that have to do with the chi of kares, right? So ve'im tim salomer keven de karbanan shava mitzdaref miyut bechelev u'miyut ba'avodas kol chavim hachavada ein yisurin shava ve'in karbanan shava odilma keven de'idi v'idi karesu mitzdaref take. And the next case is like this. What about where in 2017 they paskin that you can eat chaylev, and in 2018 they paskin that you can worship avodah zarah? So here, if you had a majority eating chaylev, the liability of the Sanhedrin would be to bring a bull. If they worship Avodah Zarah, the liability of the Sanhedrin would be to bring a goat as a offering, not a bull as an atonement. So the karbanos are totally different. So they surely should not be conjoinable to form a majority. On the other hand, you could say they're both liabilities of kares, so maybe they are conjoinable. So in all of these questions, we say teku. Related to this is the following question: Ibayilahu horu based in shechelav muter va'asu miyat hakol umeis oso based in va'amad based in acher v'chazru v'horu va'asu miyat acher. So what would happen if you have Sanhedrin A in 2017 paskins that you can eat chaylev, and later they rescind their psak, and they all die. They all get struck down for whatever reason, and a new Sanhedrin crops up, and the new Sanhedrin paskins a year later that you can eat chaylev, and they also rescind and then realize they made a mistake. So two different minorities ate two different eatings of chaylev based on two different Sanhedrins. So Ali b'demanda Omer based in Ma'isi lo tiboilach the halesnu. Now, if you hold that who's liable to bring the bull, atoning bull, if it's the Sanhedrin itself that has to bring the atoning bull, like we said in the name of the Chachamim, so then this is for sure not a question because it's two different Sanhedrins. It's not the same Sanhedrin. So therefore, Sanhedrin A's minority cannot be conjoined with Sanhedrin B's minority because it's two different Sanhedrins. Ella kiti boilach aliba demandomer tzibur maisi, my tzibur hakai, o dilma yedia deahu based in daharu ba'inan. Take. So, but if you hold like Rabbi Yehuda had said, that it's the tzibur that brings the bull, it's their responsibility. So now the question is, granted I have two different Sanhedrins, but I still have the same Klal Yisrael. So I have one minority plus another minority to make a majority, and therefore does that tzibur have to bring a bull or not? So that's really where we have a teku. Next, Amar Rabbi Yonasan. Meya sheyashvu lahoros ein chayavin ad sheyoru kulan. So he makes a dramatic statement. It's based on the pasuk Shnemar v'im kol adas Yisrael yishku ad sheyishku kulan ad shetifshot hora b'chol adas Yisrael. He says that if, let's say, all you need on a Sanhedrin is 71 judges, but let's say you have 100 rabbis that are sitting in the Sanhedrin that day, and they're all convening together, and they agree that we'll have a super majority. We'll have a group of 100 dayanim, right? If they deliberate on whether it's permitted to eat chaylev or not, you need to have a unanimous vote that it's okay to eat chaylev in order for there to be a liability to bring a bull when they make a mistake. If even one person dissents, then there's no liability to bring a bull. And how do I know this? Because the pasuk says, "V'im kol adas Yisrael yishku." If the entire congregation of Yisrael, represented by the entire Sanhedrin, makes a mistake, then they have to bring a bull. Because it could have just said, "V'im adas Yisrael yishku," if the congregation makes a mistake. Why does it have to say, "V'im kol Yisrael," the extra word kol? The extra word kol is telling me that you need unanimity, not just the majority. So Amar Rav Huna Bereda Rav Hoshi Hachanami Mistavra de B'chol HaTorah Kula Kaimel and Rubo Kukulo V'Hacha Ksiv Kol Adas Yisrael. So Hol V'Kach Afilu Hein Meya. So it's meduyak. He says basically from the language that I just spoke out. Normally we say that the word Eda just means all you need is a majority because Rubo Kukulo. But here it says Kol, and that extra word Kol teaches me that you need to have all the Sanhedrin unanimous. Now Tanan. Horu based in V'yoda Echad Mehem Sheto Talmid O Talmud V'roi Lohora V'halach V'asal Piem Bein Sha'asu V'asa Imoen Ubein Sha'asu V'asa Achrein Ubein Shalo Asu V'asa Hareza Chaybim Dei Shalo Tola B'veistin. So let's go back to our Mishnah. We learned in the Mishnah yesterday that if an individual judge knows that his colleagues are making a mistake when they say that chaylev is mutter, and he nevertheless goes ahead and eats chaylev, since he's not acting based on their instruction, but rather doing it even when he knows that they're wrong, he has to bring his own korban chatas. Haihu dechayev ha'acher potter. But if it was just a commoner who's not part of the Sanhedrin, goes ahead and eats chaylev, that person is still potter, even though there's not unanimity in the Sanhedrin. So, va'amai halo nigmara hora. Isn't this a kasha on Rabbi Yonasan who says you need unanimity? Clearly, the Mishnah is talking about a case where it's not unanimous, because there's one of the Dayanim who knows that his colleagues are making a mistake. So the Gemara says, Hacha b'mayaskinan kigon shehirkin hahu echad mehen birosho. So the Gemara says he's not demonstrating his dissent in the case of our Mishnah. You know what? He doesn't want to make waves. He knows that his colleagues are mistaken, but he doesn't want to act like he's a dissenter, and so he just nods his head. So because no one actually dissented, you do have unanimity, even though one of them knows that it's wrong, but he doesn't vocalize his dissent. Tashma, but let's look at another brisa. Haru beisin v'yada echad mehen shetov amar lahem toan atem hare elu piturim. Taima do amar lahem toan atem de piturim. Hashasik mishtak chayavin v'gomer lahorav amay v'lo haru kulan. So the brisa says that the only time there's no liability for a bull is if a person, one of the dayanim, turns to his colleagues when they want to permit chaylev and he says, "You guys are making a big mistake." Only then do we say that there's no liability for a bull, which is mashma that if he does nothing, he neither assents nor dissents. The halacha would be that they do have to bring a bull. But here too, you don't have a unanimous decision. You just have one person abstaining. He just abstains from the vote. And you said that you needed unanimity. But it sounds like from this price, if one person abstains, then there's still liability for the bull. So Amri Hachanami Kagon Shehirkin Barosha. So the Gemara says, no, you'd have to explain that the brisa is not contrasting dissent with abstention, but rather dissent with assent. And it's basically saying like this: if he dissents vocally, then there's no liability for a bull. But if he assents by nodding his head, so then there is liability for a bull. And the statement of what would be the halacha as far as whether he just abstains is not undertaken by the brisa. So it's not a kasha. Masiv Rav Misharshi asamchu Rabboseinu al divrei Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel val divrei Rabbi Elazar bar Reb Tzadok shahayu omrim ein gozun gzeira latzibur eli im ken rov hatzibur yicholun lamod ba. Now, let's ask another kasha. This brisa is not talking about the same idea, but as you'll see, it's germane to our discussion. The two great Tanoim, Reb Shimon Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar bar Reb Tzadok, said that you may never place a decree on Klal Yisrael if you know in advance that they're not going to be able to uphold it. You can't tell people that something is usher if you know that people are so entrenched in that practice that they're going to continue doing it. That's not fair. Now, what? Shemen was an example. They originally wanted to aser shemen akum, and they had to withdraw it. They had to rescind it because they saw that people could not uphold it. Very good. Va'amar Rav Ada bar Abba Maikra ba'me'ira atem ne'arim ve'osi atem kove'im hagoy kulo. So where's the pasuk that indicates that? It says, God says, you are locking me into a curse and you are constraining me into an impossible situation because of the entire nation. Now there too, the pasuk doesn't just say Hagoy, the nation, but it says Hagoy kulo, the entire nation. Now v'hahacha dichsiv Hagoy kulo v'ruba kekula dami. Now here, we're not saying that you don't make a decree unless 100% of the people cannot uphold it. We said you don't make a decree if even a majority cannot uphold it, even though the pasuk uses the extra word kol or kulo. So you see that just adding the word kol does not mean that you have to have unanimity. All it means is you just have to have a majority. Tiyufta de Reb Yonasan, tiyufta. So that taka slugs up Reb Yonasan, and therefore the upshot of the Gemara is that even if you don't have unanimity, even if you have abstentions from the Sanhedrin, but the majority still paskin that you can eat chaylev, and the majority of Klal Yisrael go eat chaylev because of that, then there's going to be a liability to bring a bull. Ve'elamai kol adas de'kamer rachmana. Then why taka did the Torah add the word kol? What is it coming to teach? So hachi ka'amar i'ika kulam havya hora'ah v'ilo lo havya hora'ah. The answer is that the word kol is not telling me that you need unanimity, But it is telling me that you need to have a fully assembled Sanhedrin present in order to paskin the shaila. If, let's say, you don't have 71 judges present, let's say 2 guys are sick, they got the flu, so only 69 judges showed up instead of 71. So if they all paskin, or if the majority of them paskin that you can eat chaylev, it doesn't count. Even if the majority of Klai will eat chaylev on their behalf, there's no liability to bring a bull. Amar Rabbi Yoshua, Yud, this is a related halacha, it's almost like Agadita. Yud shiyoshvin bedin kolar toli b'tzavar kulan. If 10 judges sit in judgment, then the pressure is on all of them. And the way that the Gemara expresses it is the stocks are on the necks of all of them. Meaning they're all on the line for this psak. So the Gemara says, Pshita, what are you telling me that I don't already know? So hakamash malan dafilu talmud bifnei rabo. The chiddush is that even if one of the judges could say, who am I to argue with my Rebbe, who's the head of the Sanhedrin? Don't think that you can get yourself off the hook, that if my Rebbe made a mistake and we ended up paskening a miscarriage of justice, the halacha is going to be that I'm off the hook because who am I to dissent from my Rebbe? No. If you're part of that beis din, then you think that your Rebbe's making a mistake, then it's your obligation to speak up. You can't just absolve yourself by saying that I didn't want to say anything. By the way, this is a big problem in many batei din in throughout the world today, is that you have the Av beis din, who's considered to be the Yoshev Rosh, and you have the 2 other Dayanim who are intimidated that I should disagree with Rabbi So.
What happened with the entire Beis Hamikdash?
Yeah, Rabbi Zachariah ben Avkilas, that I should disagree with him. Of course, I would never disagree with him. So that's wrong. You see from this Gemara that every Dayan has to have a deya. He has to be able to say, I have to have my own opinion. And if he feels so intimidated that he can't articulate his own opinion, he shouldn't sit on the beis din. Shouldn't sit on the beis din. Rav Huna ki havanafik lebeidina maisi asara tanoi devei rav lekamei ki hecha denimtin shiva mekashura. The Gemara uses a very interesting metaphor. It says that whenever Rav Huna would go to sit on a beis din, he would bring 10 talmidim with him from the beis medrash. And why is that? So that each one should get a plank from the log. Meaning that when you have a big log from a freshly chopped down tree, if you have a lot of people to share in the wood, every person gets his own plank of wood, right? He wanted to make sure that the log would be divided so that there wouldn't be one person who would bear the full brunt of the liability in case a mistake was made. Basically, it was like hedging his bets. He was protecting himself. And in the similar way, Rav Ashi ki avu maisi tarfas lekamei maisi asar tavachim imosem achasya umosiv kamei omer ki hecha denimtin shiva mikashura. He did the same thing when he would be brought an animal to paskin whether it was treif or not. After a shaila was brought up as the animal a treifa, he would bring 10 butchers with him from the marketplace of Masa Mechasya, not 10 butchers, 10 shochtim, who would also help confirm whether the animal was kosher or treif. He says, I don't want to take the full responsibility myself. I want to bring them along with me that they'll also be liable in case I make an error one way or the other.
That's the way it works. You only get 1/10 of the...
You only get 1/10 of the punishment if you end up making a mistake, depending on the size of the beis din. Unfortunately, I had to stop at the Mishnah today because I just ran out of time. So this is where we're going to hold it for today, and we'll have to catch up as we go along. All right, have a wonderful day.